For decades, it's been the butt of a global joke, right? The Nigerian prince who just happens to need your help. But behind all the laughter is a cold, clinical, and just devastatingly effective psychological weapon. So today, we're doing a forensic analysis of the 419 advance fees scam. It actually gets its name from Section 419 of the Nigerian Criminal Code, the very law it violates. And for over 40 years, this system has been hollowing out lives and bank accounts with brutal, calculated efficiency.
And that's the invitation. It just kind of shows up in your inbox, a quiet whisper of a totally different life. But make no mistake, it is not a lottery ticket. It is a lure, and it was carefully designed by master architects of a billion-dollar extraction system. So we're going to go inside the system to understand not just how it works, but why it works so well on a deep, deep human level. So here's how we're going to break it down. We've got 6 parts. We'll start with the scam's most misunderstood feature, then move into the emotional trap it sets. After that, we'll dissect its operational blueprint, explore the psychological triggers it pulls, and finally arm you with the ultimate defense. This is our roadmap. All right, Section 1, let's start with the first thing that everybody notices. The terrible spelling, the clumsy grammar, the almost laughable backstory. You know, we're taught to see these as signs of an amateur. But the truth? It's the exact opposite. These flaws are the system's most crucial and sophisticated part. It's the big question, isn't it? Why would a professional criminal operation make such obvious mistakes? I mean, you'd think they could at least use spell check. Well, the answer is, they're not mistakes at all. They are a weaponized filter designed for absolute maximum efficiency. So let's talk about this concept, the self-selection filter. Think about the scammer's business model. It's a numbers game, right? They send out millions of emails just to find that one person who's willing to believe. They absolutely cannot afford to waste time arguing with skeptics like you or me. The bad grammar and the wild story, they act as a powerful repellent for anyone with a healthy dose of cynicism. It does the work for them, making sure that the only people who reply are the ones already willing to suspend disbelief. This isn't an email, it's a filter. And this right here just lays out the cold, hard logic of it all. A perfect, polished, corporate-sounding email, it would get thousands of replies. But 99.9% of those would be from cautious people who'd ask tough questions and eventually back out, wasting hours of the scammer's time. The flawed email, though, it might only get a handful of replies, but every single one is from a high-potential target. It pre-qualifies the victim for them. So the paradox is, the more obvious the scam looks to most of us, the more effective it is at finding the exact person it's looking for. Okay, so the filter has done its job. It's found a target. Now we get to phase 2, creating a psychological environment where logic just stops working. This is all about engineering the emotional hook. For the person who replies to that email, it represents one powerful thing: hope. Maybe they're deep in debt, facing a crisis, or just dreaming of a life without financial worries. The email offers a way out. This triggers what analysts call optimism-driven tunnel vision. The emotional rush, the sheer possibility of it being real, is so intense it creates a kind of cognitive blindfold. The victim stops being a skeptic and emotionally becomes a partner in a secret, high-stakes adventure. And all those red flags, they don't just disappear. They become invisible inside this tunnel of hope. And this is where the system gets truly devastating. It's not a one-time theft, no. It's what some call a vampire system. It latches onto the victim's hope and just methodically feeds on it. It drains their savings, their retirement, their home equity. It pushes them to borrow from family, from friends. And it does not stop until the victim is psychologically and financially empty. The financial harm is total, but the psychological trauma of being betrayed by someone they genuinely believed was a friend, that's often permanent. So, now that we get the filter and the emotional state it creates, we can deconstruct the core mechanics. We're moving from the why to the how. We're going to treat this like a clinical breakdown of a harvesting operation. This is the anatomy of the heist. You have to understand, this whole thing is a methodical, multi-stage operation. We've already covered step 1, how they bait and filter their targets. Now we'll walk through how the scammer builds a relationship, creates a false reality, extracts the money, and then cruelly comes back for more. It really is a stair-step to oblivion, with each step designed to pull the victim deeper and deeper in. Okay, so here's what's so brilliant and so cruel about step 2. The scammer doesn't just ask for money. They build an emotional bond. They adopt this carefully crafted persona of high-status vulnerability. A prince in exile, a grieving widower of a corrupt official, a dying billionaire. They have immense wealth, but they're trapped, they're desperate. This triggers a powerful psychological need in the victim, the savior complex. The victim feels special, chosen, needed. They feel like they aren't just sending money, they're rescuing a vulnerable, important person. The scammer is literally banking on your goodness. And to keep this whole fantasy going, the scammer puts on what's called validation theater. They provide a whole stream of official-looking yet completely fake documents. We're talking AI-generated bank statements showing millions, forged government letters with fancy stamps, notarized affidavits, the whole 9 yards. Now, these aren't meant to hold up under real scrutiny. Their only purpose is to provide just enough procedural reality to keep the victim inside that optimism tunnel, to make the fantasy feel concrete. And now we get to the engine of the whole scam, the fee escalation loop. It starts small with a plausible request, a few $100s for an admin fee or something. Once the victim pays, their details often get logged into Mugu databases. Mugu is slang for a fool, and these lists are then sold and traded among scammers. But more importantly, once that first fee is paid, the victim is psychologically hooked. Then a new problem suddenly appears. A customs bribe is needed. They pay that. Now there's a transfer tax. Each payment to solve one final problem just unlocks another, slightly more expensive one. It's a trap, designed to bleed the victim dry, one logical step at a time. And you would think, when the victim finally runs out of money and realizes it's all a scam, it would be over, but it's not. Weeks or months later, the very same criminal network will contact the victim again, but this time they're wearing a new mask, maybe an FBI agent or an international fraud investigator. They claim they can help recover the millions the victim lost. All they need is an upfront fee to get started. It is the ultimate cruelty, harvesting a devastated victim for a second, or even a third time. So, we've seen the system, but why do people stay trapped in that fee escalation loop, even when their logical brain is screaming at them? Well, to understand that, we need to shift from the scammer's tactics to the victim's internal psychology. Because this isn't about hacking computers, it's about hacking the human brain's core programming. The first principle these scammers exploit is something called loss aversion. Look, psychological studies have shown over and over that the pain of losing $100 feels way more powerful than the pleasure of gaining $100. Our brains are hardwired to protect what we think we already have. So once a victim sends that first payment, the whole dynamic flips. They're no longer just trying to gain a fortune, now they are desperately trying to avoid losing the money they've already put in, and that drive keeps them locked in. And this gets weaponized through the sunk cost fallacy. This is that little voice in your head that says, I've already put so much in, I can't back out now. If I just pay this one last fee, I can get it all back. The scammer knows this. Every single payment isn't just a transaction. It's another anchor that makes it psychologically harder for the victim to walk away. It's like being halfway across a rickety bridge in a storm. Going back feels just as terrifying as going forward, so they feel like they have to save their initial investment by sending more, which just pulls them deeper into the trap. Now, to stop any critical thinking from kicking in, scammers create a state of what you could call intellectual submission. They just bombard the victim with complex, official-sounding but totally meaningless jargon. Anti-terrorism certificates, drug-free fund declarations, you name it. The goal is to make the victim feel confused and ignorant, to make them think, wow, this is a really complicated international process. I don't get it, so I just have to trust my partner, the prince, to guide me through. And this really just brings it all home, doesn't it? This entire elaborate system isn't just built on exploiting greed. It's built on hacking our most basic human emotions: hope, empathy, the desire to help, and the desire to be a hero in somebody else's story. It weaponizes our own goodness against us. Okay, we have deconstructed the attack. Now for the most important part, the defense. Understanding the system is one thing. Knowing how to short-circuit it is everything. This is about building a cognitive firewall and deploying the counter-exploit. There are 4 simple, powerful steps anyone can take. Think of these as diagnostics you can run the second an offer like this lands in your lap. First, the savior audit. Ask one simple question. Out of the billions of people on Earth with lawyers and capital, why me? The moment you realize there's no logical answer, the spell starts to break. Second, direct verification. Just copy and paste a few unique sentences from the email into Google. I guarantee you'll find the exact same script being discussed on scam warning sites, often word for word.
Step 3 is about understanding a fundamental, non-negotiable fact of global finance. In any legitimate inheritance, lottery win, or large financial transaction, all the taxes, fees, and costs are deducted from the principal amount before it's paid out. You are never required to pay fees up front out of your own pocket to unlock your own money. The system just doesn't work that way, anywhere. And real wealth is never ever distributed via Western Union.
And this brings us to step 4, the ultimate defense. I want you to memorize this phrase. It is transaction poison. It's a financial weapon against a psychological threat. The next time you face any situation that asks you to pay to get paid, you deploy this exact script. I do not pay upfront fees. Please deduct all costs from the final transfer. To a legitimate business, this is a totally normal request. To an advance fee scammer, it is a system killer. They literally cannot proceed. They'll get angry, they'll make excuses, and then they will disappear. All of these defenses, all this analysis, it all boils down to one simple, elegant, and universal principle. This is the golden rule that will protect you from this entire class of fraud. So here's the bottom line. Just think about which way the money is flowing. In a real job, you get paid. In a real investment, the returns come to you. In a real inheritance, the money is transferred to your account. The money always flows toward you. The moment you are asked to send money out in order to get a larger sum of money back, you have to stop. That is the universal red flag.
This really reframes the dynamic, doesn't it? When you pay an advance fee, you fundamentally change your role. You stop being the partner, or the beneficiary, or the winner. You become the product. Your payments are the scammer's income stream. You are the source of revenue they're harvesting.
I want to leave you with this as the final, memorable takeaway. It's a simple mantra that cuts through all the complex stories and emotional games. Say to yourself, if I have to pay to get paid, I'm being robbed. It's not a deal, it's not an opportunity, it is a theft in progress, period. So let's do a quick recap of what we've deconstructed. We've looked at the advance fee fraud, the classic 419 scam. We've seen its core system of fee escalation, and how scammers use those Mugu databases to trade targets. We've explored the deep psychology of loss aversion and the sunk cost fallacy it keeps people trapped. And most importantly, we've armed ourselves with the one unbreakable defense, the zero upfront payment principle. The prince isn't real, but the threat is. Stay safe out there.